What's good, everybody? So we're checking out Havoc's new channel, and for those who don't know, and this might be your first time knowing about Havoc, Havoc is one half of the rap group Mobb Deep. He is also the one of the many dope producers for Mobb Deep, along with the Alchemist. So I got a video on the Alchemist. I've done one just recently where I talk about Meet the Grams. So I'm kind of curious. You guys enjoyed that content, so we're gonna check it out. I have it linked in the description box.
Getting loose.
Okay. Trying to go live. Trying to go live on Instagram, but working again.
Yeah, it doesn't work the way it's supposed. So he's using Restream. I just think it's important to stream on one platform.
You all right? Always good to be.
We just gonna go live right now.
All right, good.
Welcome back to another motherfucking episode of
Coming in hot, it's crazy.
As you can see, I got my boy ALC in here with me.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
I'm right
here. Thank you for joining me.
Come on.
Of course, we got the one and only Dr. Talk Craig. What's good with you?
All right, always good to be here. Al, what's good? Good to see you. Likewise, man. Todd, great.
No
It's
doubt.
been a long time. It's been a long time. But today I brought your fellas in here because for the simple fact that I came out here and we starting off the Mobb Deep album. It's been a long time coming. You know what I mean? Happy to be here. Almost feels like home. We how much stuff we worked on in here. We worked on a lot of shit in here.
We did a bunch of joints next door. Remember the studio used to be next door. Like we did waterboarding over there.
Yeah.
And we did black cocaine stuff over there.
What?
And just
Black cocaine is crazy.
Old days in New York. Like, I used to have a spot. You remember, Todd, like I always had the spot in the city. Yep. So it was like, even though, the mansion was in Freeport, but then it was like, everybody come to the city to do shit. It was like, let's go meet up at Al. So it was always kind of like, the hangout or the meetup spot in the city. And that's how I got so many footage of so many records that we did. You used to just pop up on me, like leaving a meeting, like, yo, you at the crib? Wow. And we used to just make magic like in my living room. You remember that shit?
Yeah,
that's what's up.
Easy going to Al crib. Al used to have all the bud. You know what I'm saying?
Not he dry snitching on his boy. That's crazy.
And the crazy.
By the way, in New York, I'm fully aware, guys. By the way, that it's legal in NYC or just New York in general. I wish it would be legal in other places. I'm just saying, why is it taking? I guess New York needs that for real. You feel me?
Crazy fucking beats.
All the bud that you don't smoke. All the what is he talking about? All the weed you did.
Not he don't smoke. not this man. and by the way, smoking is. Look, I understand why people burn one while they make beats or whatever or make music because it does kind of enhance the experience or whatnot. Am I condoning it? No, I'm not condoning it. But at the same time, if you're an adult, you do what you can. And I got to be conscious because, I know young adults watch this channel and I don't want to kind of spread that in a certain manner. You feel me? I understand we're not in the cupcake society. Well, damn. Others would argue that. But yeah, let's
smoke.
I'm a closet smoker. I'm a closet smoker.
Closet smoker is wild.
Every time I smoke, I just have to dip off because.
Yeah, he's probably the type of smoker that is more enthused about. It doesn't really help a situation. I've seen people panic. You feel me? Like from just smoking. If it's some real good dog, I've seen people like, oh man, it's wild. How do y'all feel about that? What is your? Just let me know. What would you do in this particular situation? Are you a smoker? Not? Let me know. I want to know.
You know what I'm saying? But you know what I mean? Like, so it's a lot of history in here. You know what I mean? And we here, working on, you already know, the infamous album. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna be crazy. So when I was thinking about that, I was kind of being presumptuous, saying like, yo, we about to make a classic. But that's.
Not he used the word presumptuous. Man, ain't nothing wrong with having a great vernacular. I definitely need to improve mine, but I wouldn't expect having to use a word like presumptuous. Hey, maybe there's a lot more nuance to them.
Pretty presumptuous. You know what I'm saying? To be like, oh, we about to class. That's how I feel. In light of that, I'm like, what's a fucking classic?
Right. What determines it? I mean,
is there a classic class?
Is there a definite? Is there like
board?
I guess it all depends. I think everybody has their own classics. I don't know if it could be. I think rap's been around long enough at this point that there's different generations that have grown up. I mean, before even saying that, like what you were talking about the having that attitude, that mindset,
right.
I think is the way you should always approach music. Like yeah, I'm about to make something incredible, a classic or any word that is similar. Like, yeah, you want to do something great that's bigger than you.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So every time you set out, I mean, every time I sit down to make a beat, I try to psych myself out. Like I was like, yo, I'm about to make some shit nobody ever. Like I try to really coach myself. You know what I'm saying? So the end result, it sometimes it falls short or greater, but you always have that attitude. But
yeah, definitely. You definitely have. There's a certain energy that you want to come into when you're making a track, and there's not a better prime example of that than the Kendrick Lamar Meet the Grams. Meet the Grams is just incredible. The production. I know a lot of people that's their least favorite out of all the tracks or whatnot because it kind of travels back to boom bap, and boom bap to the majority of people isn't the pop in the wave. It's the whole trap, club banger type vibes, and it's always been like that in hip hop, unfortunately. But you would have a very select few boom bap tracks that would get the notoriety that they should be. And a prime example of that is like KRS-One's "The Rapture." To me, in my opinion, that is one of the hardest records that I will always spin. I will always want that to be introduced to whomever is learning hip hop, but the truth of the matter is they'll probably have a different perspective because of the music that exists right now. But in terms of the Meet the Grams, the beat was fire, and Kendrick Lamar, what he did on that record was absolutely insane. It just wasn't a diss record; it was a whole. I could definitely envision Kendrick Lamar right in front of me. That's the scary part about it.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Like, when does it become a classic? You know what I'm saying? Like Todd, like
what's the years on that?
When does something become classic?
I think something could become classic almost instantaneous because it's something you never heard before. But I think definitely one of the elements of a classic is it has to age well. So it might be dope when it came out, but then 5 years later, 10 years later, it still got to have that feeling and that energy around it. So I think it does both. Like when we think of certain albums that came out that we had like when The Chronic came out, we had never heard anything that sounded like The Chronic, right? All. So part of it is instant classic just with what Dre did in that moment. But then 5 years later, it was still dope. 10 years later, 15 years later, and especially for hip hop is where we coming up on a lot of these albums and the anniversaries. The culture is 50 years old. Now you're hearing albums, yo, it's a 10-year anniversary, 20-year anniversary, 35-year anniversary. Now when you start to listen back to that music, if it aged well, that's how you really know what I was listening to back then and calling it a classic then. It still holds that same category now.
So hold on.
I do think that The Chronic did age well. There is some rough parts of The Chronic. I mean, it's just not perfection, but I think for the time period, it aged extremely well. And there were certain standards that people had to reach in both hip hop and music to have that decor. That you can't deny that Dr. Dre definitely put, or just in general, everybody involved with that project put their foot into it for real. That's some real shit.
Oh, you think something could be a classic instantly?
That's what I was gonna ask.
I was what that part.
I think so.
Yes, I think it can be.
You don't think it's the hindsight now of?
And that didn't seem very assuring because he didn't answer it immediately, but he put some thought into it. So that's where the doctor part comes in for Dr. Todd Craig.
Seeing it like you talking about the Dre Chronic. Now we know it was a classic, but I feel like what kind of determines a classic is time. for it to stand the test of time. I think that's what really, because there's a lot of records that I grew up listening to that.
But in terms of what you just said, an instant classic means it's immediately a classic. Like boom, bam. There's things that you definitely know. Again, I hate to use the reference, but I promise you, not like us. Nobody's gonna forget about that. It might take a long time, maybe a decade later, but nobody's gonna forget about that for the next couple of years. For real, they're not gonna forget about this whole entire moment in hip hop. That's facts.
Like, really were very important to me growing up. Like when I was in certain phases of music, and some of it, when I listen back, age like fine wine, and some of it didn't age well. I realize it now. So I feel like I wouldn't take anything away from it, but I feel like time is kind of the real thing that decides a classic. You know what I mean?
But you know, if something that you considered a classic back in the days as you was growing up and shit like that, if you said to yourself back then, like, yo, you know, I thought this shit was a classic, but you're saying that it don't age well, like, you know what I'm saying? That's like hard to describe. Something that doesn't age well. Like, I don't want to like point out no albums that didn't age well.
For sure.
But I know some albums that probably had a lot of hype to them that didn't live up to the hype.
Oh shit. Let's get into the hoeing.
Time.
You know what I'm saying? Over time, it's like, but I think like The Chronic, like an album like The Chronic, to be honest with you, I don't think, I was so young, I don't even think I was thinking, I don't even know what the word classic meant back then, like, you know what I'm saying, because, you know, we was young and all that, but the Chronic album, it definitely did age well, you know what I'm saying? And I think the sign of a classic is something that you could still play in a party today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's definitely something that you can play.
I thought that was going to go into a dark place, bro. I was like, wow, man, you got to... And I respect that, because what people are doing these days is they will say anything just to have a hot take. And granted, it works. This sensationalism vibes. This seems like very humble, and you know, this is 100% authentic. Whoa, I was really about to do it. This feels authentic. Wow. But yeah,
the party, because like there's just some records that if you play that in the party, they might fire you on the spot. You know what I'm saying?
It depends on where you're at. I mean, I know he has DJing experience, but it definitely depends on, you know, your audience, because not everybody's gonna think. And this is where I thought Havoc was going to go. I thought he was gonna say it. I'll say it. Not everybody thinks the Dr. Dre's Chronic album is a classic. That's for sure. Not everybody thinks that, you know, music is massively subjective, by the way. Do I even have to go back into this paradigm? It's subjective to whomever. And that's why numbers kind of overcomplicate the situation at hand, because just because someone has numbers doesn't mean that they're dope, per se. Yes, the general idea behind the numbers drive is that there's a lot of people listening to it, you know, and that's why streaming is kind of doesn't hit the same as physical copies. Because if you physically have to get the copy of the music, it means that you spent your hard-earned money on it, you know. Now, granted, I know technology makes things better, and it's obviously better to have, it's economically friendly. So we know all we know right now to stream music versus buying physical copies. And just because there's a lot of physical copies, and I know, guys, there's someone going to write in the comment section, yeah, people bought their own albums and all this other stuff too. That's a topic for another day. But for the most part, you know when the people have spoken.
You might really literally be buying the fucking spot. But I think that there are bodies of work that maybe to you, or I don't know, to the general public, personally, that can be an instant classic.
What's the requirements for a classic? Just bare minimum here. Right. What are we talking about?
Let's talk about it.
So to me, yeah. What do you think?
One of the things I would say is that the beats have to be super on point.
You better believe it.
They got to be on point, and it's got to be something. It's got to be part familiar, and then it's got to be part something that you haven't heard before, so you feel like it's something new and innovative that hasn't been around, right? I think that's the first element. I think then,
with all due respect, not everything's gonna sound different. There's just genres and time eras where certain genres of music were dominant. Like R&B isn't as dominant as it was in the '60s and all the way up to the '80s and the '90s. Clearly, just certain, like, nobody's really trying to listen to dubstep like that, and I'm saying that subjectively, not knowing if people are still listening to Skrillex like they did back in 2014 or whatnot. Not to mention, boom bap in itself isn't as popular as, let's say, trap, and that's how they, we go into that, and people will clearly say, well, that's not hip hop or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You get into those type of arguments. I understand the aspect, and if he's trying to avoid it.
Lyrically, it's got to make sense for that moment, but then it's also got to have layers to it. I feel like a lot of the classics that we love.
Yeah, a lot of fun, and that's kind of the weird thing about '80s hip hop. A lot of '80s hip hop were party records because you had to get people to the parties. It was youth driven, and a lot of that music to this very day. Let me just pull one out my ass right now. No Diddy. A record that I think to this day is fire is DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Yes, Will Smith. Damn, I forgot the damn song. Damn. You know what? I'm just gonna go back to the video. I'm gonna think about it.
When you listen to the lyrics, you would
brand new funk. There we go. I was thinking about Funky Drummer and all this other stuff.
You would pick up on certain things like a month later, 6 months later, a year later. That was just the sign of dope lyricism on that album. And then also the thing that I think makes it personal, Al, is just it's the timing, right? Like if this is an album that you wake up to, you go to school to, you dealing with, a loss in your family to it. Like
for me, it was Outkast ATLiens. That was my freshman year in high school, I believe.
Like sometimes,
part of your life.
Right? It's part of your life, and it becomes a soundtrack to how you got from point A to point B in your life. And sometimes those might not be classics to the world, but to you, it's a critical album to what your development was, life-wise.
Right, no doubt.
I think
the one thing I believe, and I've been listening to Jay-Z's 444. Jay-Z's 444 was basically Jay-Z saying goodbye to his public persona or his persona in general, and introducing you guys to Sean Carter and how his thoughts and values have changed so he can further elevate. 444 slept on. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, let's look up what 44 means, because a lot of people, they say that that flip it upside down is an angelic number. What does that angelic number mean? In numerology, the number 444 is considered an angel number, which is a number of repeating digits that is thought to have specific significance. Okay, but what does it mean? Guidance, what? Yes, guidance. Your guardian angel are watching over you and guiding you towards. So basically it was him just letting go of a lifestyle that he did not want to be a part of. But we take that in contrast with how Jay-Z used to be. Blueprint Jay-Z was different than 444 Jay-Z in a nutshell. And that's kind of why people kind of age out in music, because they don't mature like their audience matures. Not everybody's going to listen to the same stuff that they did at 18 as they would in their 40s, per se. Yes, that's a long jump, but let's say 18, 24, you're going to find something different because you're on a different kind of timing. But let me know how you feel about this video. I definitely want you guys to check it out. The link will be in the description box. And Let me know. Let me know your opinions on them talking about what makes a classic. I definitely want to hear from you guys.